ado, I'm going to pass it over to Des so she can introduce our awesome speakers for today.
Yes. All right. So we do get a treat today because we are hearing from Shauna and Leslie. They are both amazing women, and their friendship specifically is something that is very admirable. So we wanted to bring them here today to really talk about friendship. And Shauna helps lead the New Jersey campus ministry, and she's one of my very best friends. She's like a third member of my family. She's like always at my house. It's really fun. She's so awesome and special, and she has an amazing heart that just, it's amazing. I can't wait for you guys to get to know her and to hear her story. And Leslie, she helps lead in the singles ministry in New York City, and she is also awesome. If you guys don't follow them on Instagram, please go, because you will get to see what life to the full is through these women. She's like model, entrepreneur, super spiritual, very down to earth, very fun loving, and also very deep. So you guys are in for a treat this morning. Without further ado, I give you Shauna and Leslie. Oh, and afterwards, we're going to have a panel with Kennedy Royal, a former teen. She's now grown. She just graduated college. So we'll get to hear from her as well. And I'll be on the panel too. So if you guys have any questions, like that you want to think about friendship or whatever, think of them, and then we'll have a time to ask them after the lesson. So here we go.
Cool. We got it. We're good, Shauna?
Yes, girl, we are good.
Okay. Well, I guess I could start things off. Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you. Nice to see some of you. Maybe some of y'all are still eating your breakfast or just drinking your coffee. So we won't take it personal that you don't have your camera on, but it's okay. So we just want to warm things up a little bit, get chatting a little bit. I know we're going to chat at the end at the panel, but hopefully you have the ability to unmute yourself, but we wanted to start off with two questions, and this is going to tie into our lesson later. So the first question is, what qualities, thinking about the game Among Us, right? So what qualities do you look for in your Among Us crew? Like when you're out, the game has started, what do you look for in your team, the people that you trust? And you can, okay, we got some people in the chat. Someone said having my back, loyalty. Okay, we're gonna just do it this way. Having your back, definitely. Loyalty, honesty. Dang, honesty is a big thing. Efficient is good if you can't finish those tasks. Respect, okay. Love, trust. These are some great qualities. Fun, okay. You might have to explain that one in the game because this game seemed kind of depressing. Kindness. Okay, so honesty seems to be a big one. Coordination, yes, Jade, that's great. So those are some great answers. Trustworthy and supportive too. Teamwork, great. So for our second question, so we're gonna get out of the game. So get your head out of the game. The question is, it'll pop up on the screen, but what qualities do you look for in your real life crew, the people that you surround yourself with? What are qualities that you look for? And I guess we're going to work through the chat. So, okay, funny. Yes, trust, honesty, and kindness. Great. Kindness, trustworthy. Great listener. Spirit-led. Come on, Daisy. We have loyalty, consistent. I can even genuine. Okay, Gabby. All right. Entertaining. Yes. I mean, you want to have fun too. Yes. Funny, supportive, loyal, good heart. I like that, Angelique. That's great. But yes, down to handle your silliness and can feel comfortable with. Yes, Janine. Good vibes. Yes, Des. Caring. Yeah, of course. These are some great qualities. So keep this in mind as we go on with the lesson that we have. But before we start, we just want to go through the rundown of what we're going to be talking about today, so you kind of know what we're getting into. So, first, Shauna and I are going to share about our crew from past up until the present. We're going to be talking about the power of your choices, imposters. We can't go without talking about imposters. We're talking about Among Us. Choosing your crew, and victory so you can win, win, win. If you know that reference, good for you. But that's what we're going to be getting into. So I'll start by sharing a little bit about my history with friendships. And I think for me, I never really honestly had issues making friends, even if it was just one person. I always seem to have friends, and I can actually remember their names, like all the way from elementary school. Like I remember Kelsey or Stephanie from middle school, Brittany from high school, Katina from college. We were just at a party 2 weeks ago, and then I'll talk about Shauna in a bit. But I think the one thing that I can say about my crew at the time is that I chose them because they were convenient. You end up being in the same class, the same school, you like the same things. So you just naturally just become friends, you hang out. But I think the thing about that is as time goes on, as you go to different schools, like I remember trying to get into a certain district so I could be with my friends, sometimes those friendships, they may not be as strong or close as they were when you guys were in the same area, the same class, all of that. So I had great friendships and they were fun and they were cool, but I didn't really pick them based off of spiritual qualities. I wasn't really that much of a spiritual person at that time, compared to now, where a lot of my friends are the ones that help me spiritually, that I can think about the qualities as to why I picked them as a friend. And on the screen you see here, that's Shauna and I. And the reason I have that picture up there is because the reason we got together is really because of God. And I'm going to mention that a little bit later in the lesson, but really it's God that brought us together. This is a picture of us. This is a sister named Sua that we had baptized. This was like 7 years ago, maybe. But I just would have never thought that I would just go into an internship, and just wanting to serve God, get some experience, to come out with a best friend. And then you'll see on the next screen that this friendship will blossom into what it is today. I mean, going to just, obviously we had a lot of fun, Broadway shows, Disneyland, like all these things here. And I'm so grateful for that because, man, something that is so spiritual has been so long lasting. I think Shauna is probably, I have many friends, but I think Shauna has been the longest friendship and the most solid friendship I've probably ever had in my life, which I'm very grateful for. And some of the other people, we still connect on Instagram. I see their life. Some of them have gotten married or they have kids or different things like that. But the level of connectedness just really isn't there anymore because our lives have just moved on. One of my friends who's not a disciple, we're still trying to work on it, and we're trying to go for tacos and on a cruise and all of that, but we're realizing for that, even that relationship to be maintained, for us to really be connected as a crew, it takes effort and work. Even beyond just, Shauna, where it's like what connected us was God and spirituality, and then it just blossomed from there. So that's been my experience, but Shauna's going to share her experience with her crew over the years.
Hey y'all. So my experience with friendships is a little different from Leslie, pretty dramaful. So growing up, I always had friends, but the quality of those friendships were trash. I mean, I was just the type of person that felt like having friends meant that I was cool, people liked me, and that people would want to be around me. So for a long time, like how many friends I had defined how I felt about myself. And having a lot of friends meant that I must be good then. In middle school and especially in high school, my friendships were just filled with people pleasing and wanting to keep my friends in my life because I wanted them to like me. I feel like I had this really strong desire for close friendships with both girls and guys, and just would do anything to keep them in my life. And unfortunately, I kept a lot of people around that were not good for me, not just spiritually, but just for my overall self-esteem. The girls I was quote unquote friends with in high school were pretty shady, backstabbing, like say one thing in front of your face, but then drag you in the mud when you're not there. And honestly, I didn't feel like there was one person that I could 100% trust with everything. Each person knew bits and pieces about me, but no one knew the whole story. You know, friends should lead you to feel safe, protected, uplifted, and as if they're trustworthy, but I didn't get that from most of my friendships. It was mainly temporary and convenient friendships. So I had a lot of people around me, a lot of people that I called friends, but I didn't really have any person that was in my corner. Even like the person I would say was my best friend back then for about 10 years was someone that I kept in my life, but hurt me tremendously throughout those years. She was mean to me, harsh with me. And back then I was someone that was super shy. So if someone said something mean to me, I just wouldn't say anything back. You know, she manipulated me and was really competitive with me. And the final straw, y'all, was I shared something with her that was really heavy, personal, and sensitive about something that was going on in my family. And she ran and told someone that was directly involved with that conflict what I said. And when I say this caused so many problems in my family, it was crazy. You know, I tolerated her treating me, but I couldn't bear that, what she was doing to my family. So by this time, I'm 21 years old. I'm a disciple already. And I'm like praying for God to give me a new best friend. And I felt so embarrassed. Like, I'm 21 years old and I don't have a best friend. Like, how do I not have a best friend? You know, and, you know, I prayed and fasted about it for several months and asked God to give me a new person. And then Leslie came around. You know, she was one of the first experiences I had of a close, healthy, and spiritual friendship. It's so funny how, you know, she just walked into that internship like, oh, and then I just fell on her lap. I was praying and begging God for a new best friend. So it's funny how God put us together. And, you know, Leslie has never spoken harshly to me. She's never disrespected me, talked about me behind my back, or mistreated me. She's not perfect, but she supports me, loves me, uplifts me, and is a safe place for me. You know, and I have a lot of different friends like Des and Ashton and others that are that for me. But it took so much for me to see what my friendships really were. And that's what we want to talk about next. It's really the power of your choices. In the game Among Us, you're given a lot of choices. You can go to different rooms and do different tasks. You pick who you trust and who you don't trust. And you also figure out what crewmates you want to be around. So each of us have to decide who we want to be in our life and what people we choose to surround ourselves with. You know, as a teen, whether you're a freshman or a senior going off to college in a couple weeks, you do have choices. It may not feel like you have much freedom at this age, but you do. You have the freedom to choose what relationships you build up and strengthen and the ones that need to be let go. And nobody can make that choice for you. In Proverbs chapter 12, verse 26, it says, the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. We want to help you learn how to choose your friends carefully. We don't want to see any of you be led astray. What Leslie and I want to do today is empower you to make choices that are going to benefit you in the long run. We're not here to tell you what to do, but we're trying to help you learn how to think. We want to teach you how to discern and sift through the character of the people you have in your life. And we want to teach you how to be more self-aware of like how your friends are impacting you or your lack of relationships are impacting you. And ultimately, we want you to walk away from this lesson knowing that you can choose to surround yourself with people that are going to help you reach your full potential in life, but also bring you closer to God. So first thing we're going to talk about here is how to find imposters. So in the game Among Us, there are imposters, right? Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's three. I honestly saw a game the other night that had 100 imposters. I'm like, is anybody like not an imposter in that kind of game? But first, let's talk about what an imposter is. An imposter is a person who practices deception under an assumed character, identity, or name. So this all means that this person fools you or tricks you. They put on a facade of being one way, but then there really are another. People that have this kind of character are not trustworthy, and they're really bad company in our lives. A lot of us probably have heard this scripture a lot, but 1 Corinthians 15 verse 33 says, Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. This scripture talks about our choice to not be misled. So to be misled means to be guided wrongly, or to go astray, or to be deceived. So really, there may be people in your life right now that you think are your friends, and they're really not. When I say, I used to hate when my mother would say, not all these girls you running around with are your friends. And I'm like, you don't know them. They are my friends. We're going to be friends for the rest of our lives. And, she was right about a few of them. She could see things that I couldn't. There may be people in your life that are corrupting you or slowly leading you astray without you even knowing it. The people we're closest to have the greatest influence on our lives. They have influence on our character, our thinking, our decisions, and ultimately the trajectory of our lives. Jesus was someone that was well aware of his company. He was masterful at picking up on people's character and their intentions and seeing people's hearts. Jesus was surrounded by people often, and a lot of times people wanted to be with him because of what they could get from him, and not simply because they loved him and wanted to be close to him. Believe it or not, Jesus lived among imposters. You guys remember the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000, right? That whole story is in John chapter 6. You could read verse 1 to 15 if you want, but a summary of it is that there's a crowd of people coming towards Jesus, and as he's with his disciples, Jesus does a miracle in providing dinner for 5,000 plus people, which is wild, with just a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. So then the next day, we read what happens in verse 24 and 26. So it says, so when the crowd saw that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they got into the boat and went across to Capernaum to look for him. They found him on the other side of the lake and asked, Rabbi, when did you get here? Jesus, as awesome as he is, said, I tell you the truth. You want to be with me because I fed you, not because you understood the miraculous signs. These people didn't care to be close to Jesus or to take the time to understand that Jesus was God or that he was coming to bring salvation to them. They were only concerned about what they wanted. They were focused on what they could get from him materially in the here and now, rather than what Jesus was offering in eternity and in heaven. Or even consider Judas. I don't know if y'all ever took some time to really think about Judas. Judas was the imposters of imposters. My goodness, when you look at what the Bible says about Judas in the background, it says that Satan worked through Judas's life. We know that he accomplished tasks through Judas, right? Judas was in charge of Jesus's finances. Jesus going from town to town and preaching wasn't cheap. You can't just show up to somebody's house and not pay. Like, they had to eat. So people would finance Jesus's ministry, and Judas was out here stealing from Jesus. Like, he was the little treasurer stealing from Jesus. He actively looked for opportunities to betray Jesus. So this was something he was thinking about. He guided the soldiers to where he knew Jesus would be the night of his arrest. So we know that Judas studied Jesus's habits so that he could set him up. He facilitated Jesus's execution on the cross for 30 pieces of silver, which is about 33% of a person's yearly salary at that time. Judas was not a good friend to Jesus at all. Although Jesus treated him as a brother, brought him into his inner circle, and loved him. But the difference between us and Jesus is that Jesus allowed Judas to be in his life with the purpose of fulfilling his mission of offering salvation to each of us. We tend to keep toxic people in our lives for far less, and often at an unconscious level. At the very least, Jesus was aware of the character of those in his company. The real question is, are you aware of your company? Each of us need to be vigilant. Notice the patterns of the people around you. Don't be like me, be in a situation for 10 years with somebody with a character that showed that they really didn't care about me or love me. In Proverbs 18, verse 24, It says, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Unreliable friends will ruin y'all. It will ruin us. If you cannot trust the person, then that's an imposter. That's someone that's bad company. What are some other examples? If someone is someone that takes from you and rarely gives, they lead you to sin and live a life apart from God. They don't encourage you or support you. If the person is talking about somebody else to you, it's likely they talk about you behind your back. If the person can't cheer you on and support you as you accomplish things, it's likely that person might be a little jealous of you. If the person doesn't respect you or your values or beliefs, it's likely they love you conditionally. And in no way am I saying that you can only have spiritual friends and friends that are disciples. Whether you're a disciple or not, you need to think about the character of the people around you and what value they add to your life. And honestly, y'all, I'm gonna keep it real. There's this weird thing I hear all the time with the teens that once you become a disciple, you can't have friends in the world anymore, or that you need to give up all of your friends to become a Christian. Some of you may not even want to study the Bible because you feel like, oh, I got to give up all my friends to be a Christian. I just want to share with you, not every non-Christian is an imposter. Not every non-Christian is someone that's fake and terrible. I have plenty of friends that haven't decided to become disciples. I have friends that are agnostic even. I just had my 10-year high school reunion this summer, and it was so fun hanging out with them. The difference is that there's boundaries in those friendships, and those people don't have a negative influence on me. There have been friends that I've had to cut off completely, not because they weren't Christians per se, but because they didn't respect me and the choices I was making for my life. If someone can't respect that you want to follow God and be a disciple, they are not your friend. They are not your friend, sis. They're only your friend if you are, submitting to their values, and that's not really love. So I just want to encourage you just to think about, do you have any imposters in your life? What kind of friends do you have? Just really even put a scale on it. Not that you're, saying someone is a certain thing, but just thinking what is the quality of my friendships if I had to rate them? Are there any people that are clearly imposters and bad influences in your life and leading you away from God? And if so, what do you want to do about it? Again, we've talked a lot about choices. You have the choice of who you decide to have in your life. And no friend is going to be perfect. Everybody has issues. I got issues. We all got issues. But there are some core qualities that you want to be looking for. And now Leslie is going to share about what you can be looking for in your friends. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Wow, girl, that was just some great knowledge there. So obviously that's not what we want to choose. We don't want to choose the imposters, but we're going to talk about how you can choose your crew. So we don't have a lot of time to share everything, but we tried to narrow it down a little bit. But one thing that sometimes we can choose, maybe we choose to have friends, maybe we're not really thinking about, different characters or qualities. But Shauna, she dropped some knowledge about what we can be looking for. But sometimes we can go to the other extreme and choose isolation. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 through 12, it says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can each help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, 2 people lying close together can keep each other warm, but how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. I love this passage. I'm sure this is something that maybe you've heard before, just the value of having more than just yourself. It even says, if you could do 3, add another person, that's even better. And, maybe for you guys, you felt that isolation, maybe not purposely, But obviously we've been in a pandemic for about a year and a half, which is forced isolation. We may not be able to see all our friends, or at least as often as we want to. But isolation, sometimes we could choose that. It's like, what, I don't want to deal with people. I don't even like people. So I'm just gonna just be a team of one, a party of one. But there's actually just unhealthy attributes to that. I looked up a study that talks about like unhealthy, trying to think of the word, but just how it's not good for us. It talks about how mental and physical health are interconnected. It said social isolation's adverse health consequences range from sleeplessness to reduced immune function, which we definitely don't need in a pandemic. We need our immune system to be on point. It even says loneliness is associated with higher anxiety, depression, and suicide rates. And isolation and loneliness are linked to poor heart health and cognitive function. It affects the way you think, so it definitely has an effect on more than just like, well, I just don't have a lot of people on us or people around me, but it has a physical and mental effect on you when you choose to be isolated. And even when you think about the game of Among Us, when you're trying to do things on your own, I've tried to do it like, forget them. I'm gonna just try to finish all these tasks. What happens? The person gets you. Half of the time, they don't even know how you died. You're just in the room alone, dead. So we're trying to avoid that. It's your choice to make an effort to stay connected. And we have so much technology. I mean, we have more apps than I don't know what to be connected. So it's your choice to be able to do that. And we all need help in order to progress. But if we're isolated, you're not going to win that way, whether it's Among Us, whether it's spiritually, or just life in general. And one of the things that I've learned in life is the way to really succeed, it's by who you know and who you're connected to. Sometimes it can help you not succeed as well. But we don't want to isolate ourselves. Even if it doesn't mean it has to be everybody, but even if you have a small crew that you're connected with, that they know how you're doing, how you're really doing, and you guys are really supporting and helping one another in the best way that you can, that is so much better than trying to do things on your own and being a crew of one, which really isn't a crew at all. But, since we're talking about friendships, we're talking about, going after spiritual friendships. I think two of the things, if that's something that you're trying to seek and go for, well, if you want spiritual friends, then one of the best qualities that they need is spirituality. They got to be spiritual. And that's what I even mentioned even before with Shauna, like that was our foundation. Our foundation was God. I mean, when we met, and even now at times, the times that we've prayed, had quiet times together, we really shared our life and shared our experiences with God, shared the ups and downs with our experiences with God. Like God being the center is what has created a spiritual friendship. If there's no spirituality, that's just not going to happen. But also a big thing that I'm going to really focus on is character. Like that's something to look for in choosing your crew is character. What for you, do you even know what to look for, in characteristics of a friend, or even just things to avoid? If you had to choose 2 or 3 characteristics, what would you want your winning team or crew or friendship to have? On the next slide, I have a list of different characteristics, both good and bad, and some just kind of average. And there's a lot. This is probably not even an exhaustive list of characteristics of people. And maybe for you, you're like, well, I'm good with just someone who's just funny and entertaining. They got to be adventurous and just, I don't know, I'm trying to think, and neat, like those are cool qualities, good things, but are they really going to move you forward in life? Are they really going to be the kind of characteristics that are going to really help you to grow, help you to draw closer to God? Maybe in some ways, but just sometimes we look at this and we're like, I don't know what to choose. So when I thought about this question, I'm like, well, in the Bible, what are the characteristics that God upholds when it comes to friendship? What are the characteristics that we should avoid when it comes to friendship? So I have a couple, not exhaustive, but one of the things that I found is in Proverbs 22, verse 24 through 25, it says, Don't befriend angry people or associate with hot-tempered people, or you will learn to be like them and endanger your soul. Like, if this scripture is not any more direct, it's like something to avoid is people who are hot-tempered and angry. I'm grateful that Shauna is not hot-tempered and angry. That would be a very interesting friendship. But the fact that it even says endanger your soul, I'm like, okay, I got it. Even in Proverbs 17:17, it says, a friend is always loyal and a brother is born to help in a time of need. In another version, it even talks about a friend loves at all times. Like, that's something to look for, qualities of loyalty. Some of you guys said that in the chat, qualities of being loving. And I know there's times where Shauna and many of my other friends have really helped me in my time of need, especially recently going through a breakup, going through addiction in my family, and just how like toxic and just hard that was. Like, these people became close to me and helped me in my time of need. And I will never forget that. And that's something that I value so much in friendships, that loyalty and that love that's there. Even in Proverbs 18, verse 19, it says, an offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. Arguments separate friends like a gate locked with bars. Sometimes we may not even realize it. I think about even in college, some of the friends I had that were befriending argumentative people. Like, you just aren't gonna get anywhere in any kind of conversation or anything like that. You guys end up being offended. Like, those are things that we can avoid. It's just like people who are just argumentative. Even in Proverbs 27, verse 6, it talks about honesty. You could trust a friend who wounds you with his honesty, but your enemy's pretended flattery comes from insincerity. Or another way to think of insincerity is like, it's deceit. Like, they have a hidden agenda. You really want to have friends that are willing to be honest with you, willing to be truthful. A lot of times I ask Shauna for advice, or what do you think? I asked her for advice last night. It's like, and she just gave me honest advice, and she knows me. And I think that's helpful when your friends know you, so that they can be honest about who you are, even whether or not you want to hear it. But it's helpful. You don't want people who are going to always tell you the good things all the time, but they could speak the truth and love to you. Even in Proverbs 27, verse 10, it talks about abandonment. So never give up on a friend or abandon a friend of your father, for in the day of your brokenness, you won't have to run to a relative for help. A friend nearby is better than a relative far away. Like, you don't want those friends who are just gonna like just leave you for dead. Like, oh, something happened, some kind of drama, is like, they're gone, they're not there. Even Jesus went through that. When things got rough, what did they do? They left him. You want friends who are going to be there. They're going to be supportive, and even in your times of brokenness. I love how the passage says that too, because sometimes we can value family, and we definitely should, but sometimes our family, they can't be the support that we need. And it's great to have those friends that are nearby, who are there and not going to abandon you no matter what. And lastly, in Proverbs 27, verse 9, it says, sweet friendships refresh the soul and awaken our hearts with joy. For good friends are like the anointing oil that yields the fragrant incense of God's presence. You want to look for people who refresh your soul, that they bring joy. Shauna is definitely someone who's like that. Whenever we get together, I feel refreshed. I feel understood. We have fun. It's joyful. And you want to look for people like that. You don't want to look for people who just drain your spirit. They just drain your energy. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, you're not trying to look for that. Even in Proverbs 13, verse 20, it says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. And I read this passage. Obviously, you want to have friends that are wise, but you want to look for characteristics that you want to rub off on you. Like, if I want to be the best dancer, I'm not going to surround myself with basketball players. That's not going to help me. Like, I need to surround myself with the dancers, or, people who are even better than you. And sometimes, like for me, I just went for people that I got along with, that are convenient, they're there. But sometimes you might even have to choose people who are a little different than you, who might actually be better at something than you, and maybe have a quality that they're great at. Like, There are many qualities about Shauna that I think, I'm like, man, I look up to her. I aspire to have a lot of the characteristics that she has, and that's inspiring. That helps you to grow. But it's thinking about the characteristics of that person. Like, what do I want to be in my environment? What do I want to be influenced by? Like Shauna had mentioned before. But lastly, in Proverbs 18, verse 24, it says, and Shauna had mentioned this passage before, it says, the man of too many friends, chosen indiscriminately, will be broken in pieces and come to ruin. But there is a true loving friend who is reliable and sticks closer than a brother. And the reason I mentioned this, it's not about, oh, you can't have too many friends, but I love where it says chosen indiscriminately. And what that means is to choose randomly, without method, blindly, carelessly, unthinkingly, thoughtlessly. Like, if we're not really thinking about the people that we're putting around us, what they actually bring to the table with their character, like, that's gonna really not be a great friendship. Even the scripture is saying, broken in pieces, come to ruin. It's not gonna help if we're not actually thinking about this. So it's not, let me be selective in choosing because, I just want to avoid drama and annoyance and bad vibes. I mean, yeah, partly, but you got to be selective in what your friends bring to the table, but also what you bring to the table. Think about your own character. What do you bring as well? But I think if we can think about the things like just with character, spirituality, even some of the things that Shauna had mentioned of things to look out for, if we keep those in mind as we're thinking about our friendships and what we're developing, it's really going to lead us to victory. I'm going to be completely honest, playing this game, maybe I've only seen this screen one time. Usually our team loses. But, if you want to have victory in friendships, whether they're disciples or not, I think valuing these things, looking for these imposters, really thinking through these friendships, this crew that you have is really what's going to lead you to success in life, success in your friendships. And we definitely want that for you guys. That's what we've experienced. We are not, the poster child of that. We're not perfect, but because of God, because of these great characters, that's what's created a long lasting crew for us. But Sean, I don't know if you have anything to mention, but if other than that, thanks for letting us share.
Thanks for sticking with us. We were so happy to be with y'all.